everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Felicia and I'm actually in the process of editing the video you're currently watching. I decided to come in and give the video a proper opening because I realized that I just kind of dove right into it. In this video, there's going to be a lot of voiceover, but I wanted to jump in first and speak to you guys about what you're going to see. I'm going to be chopping up my Monstera Deliciosa. I've had my Monstera Deliciosa now for about 2 years, and it's grown so beautifully during that time. I've gotten a ton of new growth. I've even decided to propagate one of the stems, which is growing beautifully. I actually just recently transferred that one into soil. I had it in water for about, I would say 4.5 months, and now I transferred it over to soil. So one day as I was watering my plant, I noticed that the plant has several different stems within the container, within the nursery pot that I have it in. And I just feel like the plant is just growing so wild, and that's the reason why, because there's multiple stems. Now, of course, when we purchase plants, especially the Monstera Deliciosa, everyone knows it's a wild plant, and there's different things that you can do to kind of contain it. My Monstera, I used to have little stakes inside of it to keep it contained, but that only did but so much. It was just taking up so much space. Even if I move it to a different area of my home, eventually it'll take up that space. And I didn't want to get rid of the plant. That's not an option whatsoever. So I decided to go ahead and chop it up. Now, that's not a foreign thing to have a plant with multiple stems. I've had plants in the past with 2 stems, 3 stems, but because it is a Monstera, because it is a plant that grows pretty wild, having 4 stems within one pot is a lot, and it's been causing my plant to grow very wildly. So I decided to just go ahead and take the plunge, chop up my plant, and it's actually doing really, really well. So let's jump into the video. I'll show you guys and I'll tell you a little bit more as you're seeing the plant and me chopping up the plant. So I'm excited to see the plant grow a little bit more contained. Now again, it is a Monstera, so it is going to continue to grow wild, but I figure if it's just growing out of one individual stem, even if it grows wild, it won't be all over the place. I'll be able to kind of contain it just a little bit more. So if you're interested in watching me chop up my dear Monstera, keep on watching. Let me know if you have any questions below, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Alright guys, so here's my Monstera Deliciosa. I finally, after much thought, decided to take the plunge and chop it up. It's just been growing so wild, and yes, that's something that we like for our plants to do, especially our Monsteras, is to grow, but it's just been taking up way too much room. So here, I'm just taking out the little stakes that you see here in the plant, and the stakes have been working to help keep the plant contained, but I've just gotten to a point where I figured the best thing to do would be to cut it back so it can grow beautifully from just one single stem, and here we are. So right now I'm just kind of looking in the middle of the soil, and as you can see here, there are multiple stems. This is the largest stem right here. Here's a second stem, and then here's a third stem. And in this very moment, I thought there were only 3, but you'll notice later on there's actually 4 stems in here. So before we jump in, let me give you a shot of what it looks like beforehand. Here is the Monstera before it gets its makeover. Start with one of those larger stems, and before I start cutting, the first thing you need to do, as you guys know, if you've propagated plants before, if you're thinking about propagating, you want to make sure you feel for some aerial roots. If you don't have any aerial roots and you're cutting, it's not going to grow. So I'm just chopping it up here. Now I just want to forewarn you guys, it may look like I'm like going to town, like being very rough and rugged with the plant, but I assure you I'm being as gentle as I possibly can. The plant is just a little wobbly in the plant container here, so it's gonna look like I'm doing some serious damage. So I tried to make that cut as smooth as possible. This particular stem, it was just kind of caught up in the other leaves, the aerial roots. I also have some pretty long aerial roots on this plant. I decided for the most part to keep most of the long aerial roots, so right now you don't see it really in this shot here, but I'm doing my best to try to untangle it, if you will, from the aerial roots and the stems. I'm going to do the same thing with the stem. Again, looking for those aerial roots, trying to be as gentle as possible, even though it looks like I'm like shredding it with my bare hands. You're going to notice that some of the aerial roots are growing outside of the pot, but there's one aerial root on the third stem you'll see shortly. If you have some spidey eyes, you can even see it here in the shot. It found its way back into the soil, so I did have to cut that particular aerial root because it was just tangled up in the soil. So in this case, the best thing for me to do was to just cut it. So I went ahead and cleaned off each of the stems off camera, and I split them up into different mason jars. That one that I put on the windowsill was the smallest one that you just saw me cut. This is the big boy right here. This one had the largest stem with the most leaves. So I'm putting that one here in the center. Sidebar, I had a huge accident. I'm actually filming this scene for the second time because I accidentally spilled one of the mason jars over and all the water came out. It was a big mess, had to vacuum it up, so just pretend like we're all doing this for the first time. Here's the second mason jar. The one in the middle is not a mason jar, it's just a vase that I got from Target. The other two that you're gonna see are mason jars. And here is the third one. Here's what it looks like about a month later. I just wanted to give you guys an update on the roots. As you can see, the Monstera plant surprisingly grows roots pretty quickly. I started noticing roots, I would say, about a week following the clipping. Here's the roots here on this one. Very healthy, very nice. I feel like if I wanted to, I can transfer it over to soil, but I'm just gonna wait a little while longer, let those roots get a little bit more established. Here's what it looks like here in that first mason jar. As you can see, this one is not as established as the others, but it's still very much there. And I'm just happy with how everything turned out. Let me show you that final one here in the corner. The roots on this one is coming along really nicely, as you can see. Really excited. So I went from having one wild and bushy plant to now having 4 individual plants that I can spread throughout my home and watch them grow beautifully and a bit more contained than how it looked previously. If you guys have any questions, leave them for me below. If not, I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!